The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. We are in our indie agency week. So you're going to see a lot more episodes this week as we're talking with independent agency founders, owners, any champions in the independent space, figuring out what makes them special, figuring out why it matters to be independent in today's day and age versus owned by a large holding company. So that's what we're diving into. And today's guest is Shannon Jones. Shannon Jones is the co-founder of Verb, which is an independent brand experience agency. So they specialize in creating innovative brand experiences that go beyond traditional advertising. Traditional advertising, I don't even know what that is anymore. What is it? Print, newspaper, posters, flyers, that type of stuff, TV, radio. Well, they don't do just that. They're trying to get the consumer to interact with the brand in real life and in other ways. She'll talk about that this episode. She'll talk about her career journey, the founding and growth of Verb, the differences between independent and holding company agencies, and of course, advice for the aspiring advertisers and entrepreneurs too out there. So if you are an aspiring advertiser, marketer, entrepreneur, anyone interested in brand experience, learning about independent agency life, this is for you. And I'll tease out one thing before we get into it. She'll share how Verb landed clients within its first 3 days and her advice for breaking into experiential marketing. All this stuff you'll uncover on this episode. You're going to want to connect with Shannon to do that. I don't know, message her on LinkedIn, and she might say her email towards the end of the episode. I can't tell you. You got to listen. But we hope you enjoy. Please, if you like what you hear, give it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You know the deal. This is what helps us continue to get amazing guests like Shannon. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. And as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. Indie Week on the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast is presented by Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the growth consultancy that's as invested in your agency's success as you are. So you built something great. You poured your blood, sweat, and tears into your agency. But if growth has stalled, if the industry feels like it's moving faster than you can adapt, it's time for a growth partner who's ready to go all in with you. Blood, Sweat, and Tears helps independent agencies stabilize, sustain, scale, or even sell with radical honesty, a custom strategy, and a team that actually has skin in the game. Co-founded by agency growth vets Nora Denuzzo and Eric Brown, they know what it takes to break through. If you're feeling stuck, frustrated, or ready to level it up, visit www.bloodsweatandtears.co. Now on with the show. Shannon Jones, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am good. Nice to see you.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking the time. Where are you calling in from?
I am joining from Baltimore, Maryland.
Incredible. I got to get over there. I've never been. What's like a good restaurant, favorite spot over there?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say my current fave is a spot called Yebo Kitchen downtown. I'm
What do
going
they
to
have?
French. They have this lobster bisque situation that just has a giant tail and a biscuit coming out of it. So I'm having it
Oh,
tomorrow.
I'm in. I love that. I'll have to check it out when I visit. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. For the listeners out there, go check that out. And then they
Yes.
should sponsor. But um, really, really pumped to have you on. We're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about your role at Verb,
Mhm.
being an independent company. What does that mean in today's market? There's a lot of different agencies out there. And then any advice that you have for aspiring entrepreneurs, advertising professionals, or marketers out there. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's kick it off from the top then. Tell us about you and your role at Verb.
So I am one of the co-founders of Verb. I am used to having my co-founder here with me, Yadira. So I hope I represent us well. Yadira and I actually used to work together at another agency for many years. And I've always been on the agency side for the last 20 plus years. Big holding companies, small independent agencies, um, all across the country. So I'm definitely an agency girly for sure.
Okay, got it, got it. And you worked together for a lot for a while in your career, you said.
Yeah, we probably worked together for 4 or 5 years at another agency before we branched out to start Verb. Our 7 year anniversary is January 22nd, 2020.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And it's been working. I mean, I saw here that you were named, uh, you both were named Experiential Executives of the Year by Adweek, and I heard you're really good at karaoke. Is this true?
Yes, karaoke is a core value at Verb.
What's
I
your
feel like it
song?
gets its way into everything. You know, I feel like my sleeper song is A Whole New World.
Oh,
Um,
great.
but like my
Fantastic.
top favorite is SWV Week.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I have a whole karaoke list that it's proprietary. I can't share that.
I love that. You got to join us.
Yes, yes. Let me know if you're in New York. But experiential partner,
Yeah,
experiential executives. What does that mean? Like, tell me about like your role, her role, how you
sure.
can't like how you balance each other out. What's the
Yes.
vision here?
I feel like Yadir and I are very yin and yang. I think we have such a really incredible partnership. The great thing for us was that we worked so closely together for so many years before that we just had such a solid foundation of how we work together and complement each other's skill set. Um, And so to be recognized as experiential executives of the year was such a huge honor and quite frankly a bit of a surprise, but I really appreciate it because it can be daunting jumping out on your own. And it's interesting now that we have worked for ourselves more than, at least for me, more than I've worked for any other company in the past.
Incredible, incredible. How long ago did you guys launch?
January 2018 was when we launched. So seven
Nice.
years.
Okay, so can you paint the picture of right before, like, when did the idea hit both of you that we should start our own agency? Like, this might come into a lot of people's minds, but
Yeah.
like, what was like the what was the impetus? What was the idea? What was the space that you could attack and fill that void?
Sure. I think for us, we had a little bit of a separate motivation. We had had a lot of really incredible success in the years leading up to us departing. I think for me, I felt a little pigeonholed by that success with our previous agency where we were doing really great work. And it was like, okay, keep doing that. Do it again, do it again, do it again. But weren't necessarily using all of the tools in our toolbox. And at the time, we didn't really find another role in the industry that we were super excited about and interested in. And I can remember a few years prior when I was freelancing and working for a small agency, and they said, look, you can always go get a job, but you might as well try this and see what happens. And so the first time that happened, I ended up joining a small independent agency and working there for a while. And so I kind of kept that in the back of my mind as we decided to start Verb. And so, again, it was really about using the tools in our toolbox, creating what we wanted to see in the world. And we had had such a really unique working relationship with our previous clients, and we wanted to really carry that over through the rest of the work we would do in the world.
Gotcha. So what is like some like the bread and butter? Like when you had Verb as an idea, like was there a type of client that you would want to work with, a type of end product that you wanted to put out in the world? Was it experiential by nature, or is that just what you were good at? Like, tell me more about this.
Yeah. I think that we were definitely doing a lot of experiential at the time, but I had worked at Group M back in the day, so I had been on the media side a little bit. It was still integrated marketing, and my co-founder Yadira had been at Macy's for almost 10 years prior to our previous agency, so she had worked on some of the largest brand experiences in the world. And so we knew that we would start with experiential, but we didn't want to just be limited to that. And in the early days, we were calling ourselves a hybrid because we were consulting. brands on how to stand up their experiential department. We were consulting larger agencies, doing some art direction and branding, just really tapping into a few different areas we had experience. And so, how that's evolved over the years is brand experience. And it it is definitely rooted in experiential, but I think the category is so much more expansive than that. And I feel like the only other folks that I feel like have really captured it is the Cannes Lions brand experience category, because there's such a wide breadth of campaigns that are featured there. And so for us, what we're excited about in terms of brand experience, it really allows you to do that never been done before. That's what really lights us up. Where it doesn't just have to be an event, it can be, but thinking about how people can experience and interact with your brand, that's really our jam.
Yeah. And from my knowledge, and I don't know too much, but I feel like when I think experiential, I think about how the consumer physically interacts with a brand or what they put on.
Mhm.
So like when I think like if there's a mechanical bull that's branded by Red Bull, is
Yeah.
that experiential? Like give me the bread and butter basics of like the fundamentals of experiential in
Yes.
in
It is
the world.
definitely how people experience your brand. Sometimes that's more content driven. Sometimes it's a creator led campaign. Um, Sometimes it's a stunt that you see in the world. So it really runs the gamut. So it doesn't have to necessarily be IRL, but how we describe it is anything beyond traditional passive advertising can be
Yeah,
a part of a brand experience.
gotcha. Yeah. So like not a print, not like
Yeah,
a billboard, like none of those
exactly.
like digital, whatever that
Yeah.
means. But
Yes.
totally
Yes.
understand that. I mean, that's where the cool ideas come. Like
Yeah,
brand
it's the
acts, I feel
stuff.
like you have the potential to get so much earned press.
Yes,
Any PR executive would wants that, so it's
and make
easier
people
for their
feel
job.
something. I think that's what really excites us. We talk about this notion of seen, valued, and connected, and that's what really lights us up. When we have a campaign and we see the comments and people are like, "Oh, I've never felt so seen," or "I found my people." Like, that's the type of stuff that really gets us motivated, and certainly driving the brand, also driving the bottom line. But we see how that correlates. So, um, brand experience, I think, and people have talked about it for several years now, especially post pandemic, of how important those IRL connections and those meaningful moments are in building community. So I think we'll continue to see a resurgence in this area for sure.
Yeah, totally. It's one of the things that I'm thinking about with breaking and entering. It's like, how do we
Mhm.
bring our consumers, aspiring advertisers, with and connect them with our brand, put on an event or put on something that connects them, makes them feel good with our brand values, and hopefully have them get
Mhm.
jobs. So outside of like a career fair, like what can we put on? So like those are the types of things that I'm thinking about
Yeah, I love
as a
that.
business owner. So we'll be in touch. But
Yeah, I love that.
how so you launched it, and I like that your business partner too is from the brand world,
Hmm.
working at
Hmm.
Macy's. So that's also very unique. I don't hear that very often. So you two come together, you have kind of both sides of the coin here, and you can easily tackle, and you work together too, but you
Right.
get the full picture and how a client would want to work with you all. It makes sense.
Totally. And it's interesting because, when people talk about our origin story and when we started, we really had a lot of momentum from the very beginning. We sent out those traditional goodbye notes when you're leaving, say, "Hey, keep in touch. Here's my info." And then so many people reached out and said, "Wait, where are you going? What are you doing? What are you about to do?" And so Yadira and I reached back out to them and just let them know we were starting our own shop. And so we had clients within the first 3 days. We had given ourselves 100 days to kind of figure it out. Um, but within the first few days, we had several really big clients, and we were just off to the races. And we talked about those first couple of years really flying the plane and building it,
Mhm.
and leaving our mark. And so it's just continued to grow and evolve over the last 7 years.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask how the pandemic affected, and it seems like you bounced back already, and like obviously there might be a hit, but you tell me your experience with
Sure.
that.
The pandemic was interesting because I was pregnant, first of all, so that was a new curveball we had.
Yeah.
But I would say at the time we weren't doing a lot of really traditional experiential, like South by or, Comic Con or some of these big tent poles that were getting canceled pretty early. Um, and so there were some early campaigns that we had that we pivoted to more virtual or digital or content extensions. And we had a lot of really great success with that. We didn't go too deep into the virtual event world. We really tapped into our, breadth of expertise of like, what else can we do to engage with consumers. And 2020 was actually one of the first campaigns that Verb did with Airbnb. It was actually the Fresh Prince house. So again, you think about that type of remit where it's not quite an event, it's not quite a campaign, but it is certainly a really incredible experience. And so that was really the catalyst for us, creating all these incredible over the top experiences with them over the years.
And that was Airbnb and the Fresh Prince of Bel Air house.
Yes, yes,
And so fun, so fun.
yes.
And what was the brand? It was Fresh Prince. Like, was there a new? What were they promoting again?
At the time, I think it was the 30th anniversary of the series.
Hmm.
And Will Smith was doing a huge, press run and promo tour at that time as well. But it was like, hey, we have the Fresh Prince house. Like, what should we do? Our team came up with a really incredible campaign, and that, like I said, it was just such a catalyst of just reimagining how people can experience a brand, especially for a brand like Airbnb.
Oh, I love it. It's so fun. Now, I was just talking with a student on like how do you break into experiential, and
Hmm.
she was saying that she wants to work for like a specific brand and do it in house. But I was saying you might want to consider breaking into an agency that specializes in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you can get multiple experiences and different brands and really build up your skill set. So then you can go and work for one specific brand later on. Do you agree
Yeah.
with that advice? Is that
1 trillion%. I could be
cool?
biased because I've always only been on the agency side, but especially those early years,
Hmm.
the agency that I worked, I feel like I got to touch everything. I worked on several different brands, but I got to work on Fashion Week all over the world. I was in Brazil, I was in India, I was all over the US. And I just feel like, depending on the brand for sure, but I feel like sometimes you can be very limited in terms of the scope that they're
Yeah.
doing. But I mean, back in the day I used to work on Singular Wireless, so they sponsored so many different events and music tours and festivals. And I feel like I got a wide breadth of experience, and I think that really helped shape, again, those tools in the toolbox that later informed my strategic approach and creativity when it came to other clients.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, inherently, like you're not going to get as much experience, I feel like, if you work for one specific brand. Like,
Mhm.
you might do a couple projects, like the value might be there, but the diversity in the brands that you're working with is
For
not
sure.
there.
For
So
sure.
I'm sticking with that advice for that
Yes.
listener. So I'm,
Plus
I'm
one.
glad. So how did you break in? Tell me about how you got into advertising. What was that story?
So I feel like I always knew that I wanted to do this career even before I knew what it was called. How I used to describe it was I wanted to tell brands what to do with their money. And one of my earliest jobs, if you will, was working at the rec and sports league in my town. And I was a volunteer cheerleading coach, but I ended up on the board. I don't know if they created this teen board member spot for me, but what I was doing was working with the team on getting local businesses to support the rec league teams. So, like the local pizza place would have their name on your jersey, or the local insurance guy would sponsor a basketball team. And so I really liked that. And I think that's what really gave me the bug initially. And my godmother was the head of advertising of the Baltimore Sun. And so it was in my periphery that advertising was a thing. And so that was really the initial foray into our space. And then I had different internships while I was in college, and one was at a sports marketing agency where I worked on McDonald's All American and Aflac Baseball Classic and all these things, where I saw these big brands as the title sponsor of these All American games and sports teams. And so um, that was my official start in the industry.
I was going to ask, how did you get that? That's a big time internship. Where was it networking? Tell me more.
Yeah, there was a guy that was in Black Student Union with me at Maryland, and he had an internship there. And he said, "Hey, I'm getting this different internship, but they need someone else. Do you want to work there?" And I said, "Hell yeah!" And so that was how I got the internship.
Love it. Love it. So the clubs, that club was really helpful for you. And
Absolutely, I was in all the things.
of course, of course. So then tell me about graduation and then looking at the job market. What was that first job? Uh,
I had a sports marketing class in college, and my professor used to have different people in the industry come in. At the time, I didn't realize the gravity of this, but he had Michael Jordan's agent come in. He had all these big people in in the sports industry, and one woman came in. Um, and she was from this company called Velocity Sports and Entertainment, and they had just done the naming rights deal of FedEx Field. And she was talking about their company, the types of brands they work with, what they do. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. And as we were graduating, my professor mentioned that she had an open role available. And so he set up the interview for me and said, I think you would be great. He gave me the referral. And I interviewed with her, and she said, I think you'll be bored in 6 weeks. And I said, no, I won't. I promise. No, I won't. I would love to be here. And she said, I think you'll be bored here. I think you need to go work at our headquarters in Connecticut. I said, okay, I guess I'm off to Connecticut. And so they had a management trainee program at Velocity. And so you basically spent 6 months there. And this is after graduation. And then you may get offered a full time role at the end of the 6 months. And so that was my first official gig outside of internships.
wow. And then you did that for 6 months?
I did the training program for 6 months, but I
And
ended
then
up
you,
working there for 5 years.
incredible. And during
Yeah.
that training program, was it stressful? Did you fall in love with it right away? Was there imposter syndrome? What was going on in your brain?
No, side tangent, I don't believe in imposter syndrome, but no, I loved it. Um, it's funny now because I reflect on some of the things that I had to work on. Like I was managing the all of the assets for the the Motorola deal with the NFL. And so it's like all their tickets across all the teams. I was ordering decals for headsets of all these different specs for the teams. And I just remember manually having all these different spreadsheets. And now I'm like, shit, Google Sheets and Airtable, like everybody's got it easy now. Like it was nuts then. And then manually mailing out tickets every single week to all the different sales folks for all the different teams. And like digital tickets, like this is so simple. You can email it.
Oh, yeah.
But I had a good time though. I really, really
Gotcha.
loved it.
And then what was your first agency experience? Like, would you count that?
Yeah, definitely. Velocity was my first agency. And then from there, I think I went to Group M for
Mhm.
a while, and worked in the entertainment and sports partnership group. And that was a really incredible experience learning the media side of the business. And, media budgets were 10 times what we were spending in like the traditional like sports sponsorship space. Um, so that was really great. I've always been on the agency side though, from Group M to smaller agencies, and then Civic Entertainment Group years later, and then now with Verb.
Gotcha. Interesting. Interesting. So then I think so. You've worked at some holding company owned larger shops like Group M
Yes.
and um, is Civic independent? I don't know. Maybe
Independent-ish.
ish. So,
Yeah.
uh, and now you're truly independent with Verb.
Yes. Yes.
So I guess to the listeners, what is your experience like the pros, the benefits, and some of the cons of independent versus larger holding company owned agencies?
Sure. Um, One of my early agencies, they were independent, but I experienced them going through multiple acquisitions. Like they had been acquired and then that company was acquired. So definitely changed the dynamic. I think that um part of the difference, I think for sure, is the freedom you have when it comes to the type of work that you do, the type of accounts that you work on. Um, and sometimes I think there's this notion of feeding the beast, especially as you scale. When you're an agency of tens of millions of dollars, or even hundreds of millions of dollars, um, you're so focused on the bottom line sometimes that I think that we lose the plot when it comes to why did we get into this? What do we want to see in the world? What do we want to do? And you don't have as much freedom and flexibility when it comes to the work or even the freedom to walk away if it doesn't feel like the right fit. And so that's something that I appreciate, but that also comes with a certain amount of pressure. You know, you still have to keep the lights on. And it's interesting to think about how much flexibility agencies within holding companies have to grow and scale. While I was involved in P&L, I certainly wasn't the sole person solely responsible for it at bigger agencies. So I'm actually curious when that comes to headcount and, you know, just some of the things that take a lot longer to decide on or move on as a smaller agency. That you may have access to more resources or even overhead. Like I can just remember, you know, you're in these giant offices or, you know, sometimes, especially with Group M, there were so many other Group M or WPP companies in our building. I'm not even sure who owned the building, but just the flexibility that you have there in terms of access to resources. Um, I do think that there are certainly some benefits to it in the networks you can tap into other agencies and their resources, or they have different specialties and skill sets. But what I have definitely found on the indie side as well is that people are very willing to collaborate, to help you, to work together. Like the Ad Age small agency community has been super collaborative. Um, I've found a lot of camaraderie through like other agency folks through Chief, even.
Mhm.
So I feel like we've found other ways to navigate through it beyond having a built in network or support system. But I would say the biggest challenge is probably as you're scaling. Um, you know, managing cash flow, managing bandwidth, managing overhead, profitability, like all of those things that come into play. We probably scaled almost 5x last year. And so that's, you know, that's a huge thing, especially when the buck stops with you at the end of the day, and creates a different pressure. I actually think we probably felt more pressure going from like 5 to 10 million versus 10 to 50.
Hmm. Interesting. Why is that?
Um, I don't know. You know, I kind of feel like you already had the scared part. You know, you can
Mm,
figure it out. You know what I mean?
mm,
We had all the oh shit moments, and so you know, once you figure out how to navigate it, you have a different confidence of like, I know we can get through this, or I know we can figure this out. Or you hire people smarter than you. You get a new CFO, and you know, switch banks, and then you
yeah.
get a better finance partner, and go from there.
What now? I'm curious then for the aspiring advertiser, what are the benefits of starting or working at an independent agency? We got your perspective up
Sure.
top and throughout your career, but for the first job,
First job, I think that for first job, at an independent agency, a lot of times they're often a little smaller. And so you get to touch a lot of different things. You probably will have more responsibility than you would have at a larger agency that has a more hierarchical structure where you start out as an intern, then you go to coordinator, then junior account coordinator, then supervisor. You know, just there's so many more steps I feel like that you have to go through versus being able to jump in, and especially as you're with a successful agency that's fast moving and growing quickly, you can jump in on things. You can raise your hand and say I'd like to help with that, and you have a lot more of that opportunity. Or if the agency is diving into new areas and it's an area of interest for you, you could say, oh, I am actually studying content, or I actually work on social media outside of work. I would love to focus on this for the company. And so I think that there have been a lot of folks internally that have been able to grow into um, really incredible roles that might take much longer at a larger shop. But I started at the big agencies, so I think there's also benefits to that as well. But specifically at the indies, I think that you get more of that like entrepreneurial spirit, and everyone's like rolling up their sleeves and jumping in together. And I think you have the opportunity to learn a lot more, a lot faster.
and what about for brands? What are the benefits of a brand working with independent agency versus a holding company owned?
So I think I could be biased,
Yeah, that's
but
fair. That's
I
fair.
will say
Podcast.
My hope is that with the indie agencies, you get bolder ideas, bolder creativity. You get a more collaborative, flexible working relationship. There's not as much bureaucracy, red tape. This is how it is, or how it has to be, or um, oh, I have to bill you for that extra 10 minutes. I think that we are very collaborative with our client partners, but a lot of the independent agency folks are oftentimes expats of the bigger place. So it's like we have that breadth and depth of experience, but there's also this entrepreneurial spirit and grit that you get with the indies. I think it's a little more fun. Again, I could be biased, but I do think it's a little more fun because we're ourselves. I think that the people that are starting their own shops, I hope for most of my other counterparts, you're creating the space you want to see in the world. You feel like you have permission to be yourself and you give others the permission to do the same. And I think that the way that people show up to work reflects that. And I think that also translates to the work that we do with and for our client partners.
Incredible. What's next for you and for
Yeah.
Verb? What's your vision?
Fun stuff. We have a lot of fun stuff on the roster right now. We've recently just started working with Cook Unity and a few other clients that just to the point about like the indies bringing you bold stuff. They're letting us like push the envelope a little bit.
Good.
So I'm excited for that work to be out in the world. And then I think just from some of the successes that we've had over the years, with like really big headline making campaigns, it's attracting even more of the type of work we want. Like we talk about this notion of being for visionary leaders and founders, and those are the referrals that we get. Those are the phone calls that we get. So that's what's really exciting me right now. Like people that want to do dope shit and want to do the never been done before. And so even just the Q1 work that's coming out, like that's what I'm really excited about. Of like, pushing
Let's
it a little
go.
bit.
Well, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see it. How can I follow, stay tuned? Where do you update like the B2B world? Is it LinkedIn, website? You
Yeah.
tell me.
Um, our new head of marketing and growth is making us change our website. So maybe by the time you're hearing this, there will be more than just for 7 years it's only said by referral only. So maybe by the time folks are hearing this, it will say more than just by referral only. But LinkedIn, definitely, we keep a lot of work updated, our point of view on the industry, what's going on with our team, what we're thinking about the world, and then, sharing what we're up to.
Great. How can people connect with you directly?
LinkedIn also is definitely a great place to do that.
Wonderful. Anything else you wanted to share that we didn't get to, Shannon?
Um, I just think that this is such a dope industry. It gets a lot of flack sometimes, and so I really love what we do. And I love that we can, change people's lives, like make people feel something and leave our mark on the world. So I definitely encourage anybody that's considering it to go for it. There are bad actors, there's drama, there's all the things, but by and large, like I really, really, really love what we do. I love our team and, want more dope people to join us.
Wonderful. Love it. Well, Shannon, thanks so much for taking your time, taking the time out of your day. It means a lot to us. I know you're going to keep on crushing it. I can't wait to follow along this year to see
Thank
everything
you.
you make.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course.